r/AskReddit. Lawyers of Reddit. Who is the most fucked up person you have had to defend in court? I have tons of these, but the best is woman who was charged with stuffing a stroller with items she intended to steal at a toy store. Larceny of some degree. As a side note, she was about 5 feet 4 inches tall, and about 3 bills. Also a rather impressive neckbeard she played with. She had a history of this exact crime as well as a rather extensive felony history, so she was looking at significant jail/prison time. She was in custody, and when I went to meet with her she demanded I bring the prosecutor into the jail to cut a deal. I explained that this prosecutor would not be interested in any deal, unless she could offer something really big in an effort to manage her expectations about getting relief this way. That was a mistake. She stood up and threw her chair at me and started screaming that she was a killer, yo. And I know tons of murderers, motherfucker. The part that made the whiteboard at the office was when she said, while she was in jail, I ain't going to jail. I know killers. Ain't going to jail, period. .com. From that point forward everyone in the office used period.com to emphasize everything. Back in the 80s, my father defended a man who broke into his ex-girlfriend's trailer, violating a restraining order. He wanted to write her a note, but couldn't find anything to write with, so he stabbed her dog in the eye and used the blood to write it. As far as I know, the dog survived, and the man was found not guilty because of insanity. There was also this one case, where his client was charged with having child pornography, and he had to verify the evidence. After signing about 1 million forms and getting permission from a judge, he was escorted by a police officer into a small room where he viewed the video. Yup, it was child pornography. It wasn't some Girls Gone Wild video where a 17-year-old lied about her age. It was straight up sodomization of infants. They were crying and everything. He told me that was the worst thing he's ever seen in his career. I had a client that went on an hour-long rambling statement about conspiracies and the injustices of the system, only barely touching on the actual DUI charge we were defending. The prosecutor didn't object to any of it, he just let the shit roll. And I didn't cut him off, because I had this conversation with him 20 times before in private. He wanted to state his piece against all of my warnings, so I just let him. The judge was pretty pissed, and eventually cut him off. When he came back to the table, he just kept smelling this small pillow his son gave him for good luck. When the jury went back to deliberate, he asked me, "How do you think we did?" Guilty in about 4 minutes. I saw him at the jail a month later to turn himself in for an overpass, and he was telling the other inmates how much I fucked up his case. I'm a trial paralegal, but my old firm represented a property management company that was particularly slimy. A few tenants were suing the property manager because they had gotten sick from the living conditions in the property units. However, there was no record of the tenants ever reporting issues with the property units, so theoretically there was a bit of a defense for the manager. He could not fix what he did not know about. This case has been going on for a year and we discover that the manager has been hiding evidence from us. There were nearly 100 complaints from tenants. There was also even more tenants that had gotten seriously sick from the living conditions. My firm urged the manager to settle, and then he was fired after the case was over. I was a document clerk at a law firm when this happened. A woman alleged that a co-worker raped her at the fast food establishment they both worked. As a document clerk I did a lot of the initial fact finding in documents/videos/photographs and would write up a short memo to the head attorney of the case. It would make it easier for him to see the important stuff and not waste his time or the client's money. In this case there was a video that was sent in by the employer. It wasn't labeled, but I still popped it in the CD drive. I opened it up on my work computer and watched grainy sex of the plaintiff and the alleged rapist. It looked completely consensual. If anything, she initiated it. The weirdest part? At one point during the sexual act, he has her bent over next to the fryer station. She reaches into the basket, grabs a fry, and eats it while he's thrusting into her. I immediately sent the DVD to the head partner to take a look. 10 minutes later, I'm sitting in my office, and here aha, she ate the fry. not a lawyer yet, but just this summer in Maryland a guy decided to take his sure thing acquittal and toss it out the window. In this area of Maryland, stealing cars from gas stations is popular, and this exactly is what our criminal did. He stole some woman's car while she was pumping gas. Shortly thereafter, when police are talking to the woman at the same gas station, the thief drives right by in the stolen car as she's describing it, so she just points at it and says that's actually it right there. The two officers on scene decide to chase him. The problem is, their department's policies only allow chases in very limited circumstances. Generally, armed crimes are the only way to get to chase a suspect. Car theft is not one of the excuses to initiate a chase, so the officers are breaking their own self-imposed rules. Our thief leads this cruiser on a chase down the highway, zipping between cars until the cruiser swerves to avoid another car, flips, throws the driver from the vehicle and kills him. The thief is eventually caught, but with evidence showing that the officers engaged in a chase they weren't allowed to begin, the guy was set to get off because all he had done was steal a car and commit some reckless driving offenses that were only going to get him like 6 months, which he had basically served by the date of trial. But rather than get away with it, our thief decided to write a letter to his friend from jail asking him to kill a witness he thought might help convict him. I sat in the courtroom just facepalming as the prosecutor read from the letter. The thief went from time served to 15 years with a single sheet of paper. I'm fortunate to have not had any really bad, morally, cases. I've had lots of people who suffered from fairly severe mental illness, but you can't feel anything but bad for them. They've got it pretty hard as is, before you factor in the law. And then you've got your run-of-the-mill shitheads. People that know better, have the capacity to be good people, and could probably live an easier, less stressful life if they just quit breaking the law. Drug dealers are a good example of that. Every 2-bit crack slinger thinks he's Tony Montana or Walter White. He is not. He is a 2-bit crack slinger who can barely sell enough crack to afford his shitty Motel 6 room for the weekend, before getting busted for the 6th time in a decade, because he has not learned yet that when the pretty girl comes up to him in the parking lot and says she wants crack, it is a sting. It is always a sting. I've heard plenty of murderers, wife beaters, child molesters, etc. as clients. All of them were fucked up, or bad in the sense that they suffered moral failings and broke the law, but I wouldn't say any of my clients were like depraved or anything. When I was a prosecutor, however, I did get to try a guy who beheaded someone. That dude was pretty awful. On the private side, I'm very selective. I refuse to take cases for people that are shitheads, and if I find out you are a shithead mid-hearing, I'm done. I had one guy get very angry during a family court negotiation and act violent/threatening with opposing counsel, cursing, slamming fists on the table, etc. I marched outside, told the judge I would like to withdrew from the case, and sent him his retainer back in the mail. Life is too short to waste good time on people that cannot behave like grown-ups in court. Not the most outrageous story, as I'm no longer practicing in the traditional sense and never did criminal work, but as a first-year associate I was instructed by a partner in another department to defend one of his friends who was being sued for defaulting on a couple of loan agreements. My client told me, just drag this out as long as you can. I intend to pay the guy back, but I need time to raise the cash. We had a first appearance coming up before a judge as kind of a case management/pre-trial procedure. On the day of, my client emailed me and told me he wouldn't be attending because he had some important investment meeting to attend. Yeah, right. I went to court. The plaintiff proceeded to tell this long, drawn-out story about how he was trying to get his money back from my client while also tending to his dying, now dead, wife. He also produced a ton of extremely nasty emails sent by my client in response to the plaintiff's heartfelt pleas for the return of his money, which were all new to me. In one of the emails, which the judge read aloud, the plaintiff wrote something like, "Please, I need my money back. My wife is dying, and I can't work right now." My client's response, "You want your money back? Sue me. Otherwise, I'll see you in hell." I basically spent the next hour getting yelled at by the judge. Appointed to represent indigent defendant in a DSS abuse/neglect case. This one involved drug abuse. Show to court, and the caseworker is showing me her latest hair test results are off the charts. Client story, not using coke. Just dating a coke dealer. Keeps it on a ledge over the bed. Must have been bumping uglies real hard and some sprinkled in her hair. I ignored the scientific argument that that's not even how a hair test works. Wouldn't have gotten me anywhere. Which sounds better, I tell her, I messed up and did some blow this weekend. Or my BF deals the stuff and railed me so hard he made it snow in my hair. My dad does criminal defense appeals and his favorite client was a guy who got arrested for stealing a car. The client had broken into a house just looking to steal whatever he could find. He was wandering around grabbing stuff when he found the keys to a really nice car. I forgot what kind of car, but it was probably a Ferrari or something. So the client drops everything, goes out to the garage and takes off. For the next few weeks, the client takes the car out in the middle of the night and goes looking for cops. Once he found them, he would honk the horn, flash his lights, and get their attention, then take off in a high-speed chase. He did this for a few weeks and the cops were getting really pissed, but eventually they get the helicopter on him, and he wraps the car around a telephone pole. But here is where the story gets really good. One day my dad gets a call from his client, who is his prison, and the client just chats with him about the news, weather, all kinds of stuff unrelated to his case. The next day he calls back again. Same unrelated stuff. Third day my dad gets another call, and after chatting for a while the client says, I bet you are wondering why I keep calling you. My dad admits that he was kind of curious. Well, last week there was a race riot here, so all the Mexicans, blacks, and whites are on lockdown, but I'm Native American, and I get along with everybody, so there is no line at the phone, but I don't have anyone else to call. Not a criminal defense lawyer, but I did defend a guy in a tax sale proceeding, where you don't pay your property taxes and the gov puts a lien on your house and sells it out from under you. This slimeball had managed to avoid paying any property taxes for like 10 years and avoiding a sale by shuffling the property between himself and various ex-wives and GFS. He didn't even have a somewhat sympathetic reason to not pay his taxes, i.e. lost a job, health problems, unexpected expenses. He was just an alcoholic bag who didn't feel like he should have to pay taxes. Anyway, the courts finally caught up with him, served him properly, and scheduled his house for upset sale. He wanted us to go in there and put him on the stand, which I told him wouldn't help. In this type of case the only way you can stay the sale is to pay the taxes owed, or show that there was a flaw in service. But he insisted, and he was the client / paying, so whatever. Next day he showed up to the hearing, 9 AM on a Wednesday, completely fucking reeking of vodka. I did not put him on the stand. He lost his house. Surprise surprise, he didn't pay anything on top of the small retainer he gave us. On a related note, this is why I hate working small town real estate law, and why I'm thankful I'm switching to a different field and firm in a few weeks. Out of the dozens of foreclosure / tax sale case I've represented in 5 years, maybe like 2 have been clients who have actually just hit hard times and weren't complete pieces of shit. Once had a guy who was charged with his 3rd strike for child molestation. His attitude was, I may as well go away for life because I can't stop doing this, so it's better for everyone that I be in prison. How can a defense lawyer just let someone plead and take life without parole? I mean, he may have been right objectively, but that's not my role in the system. I finally got him something like 15 to life. He'll probably never get out, but at least there's a possibility. He was one sick puppy, but at least he realized it. Here is one for all of you animal lovers. This happened about 8 years ago. My client, a run-of-the-mill mid-50s gentleman, nothing out of the ordinary and no priors, apparently hated his neighbor's cats. He lived in a garage apartment with a wooden deck / porch that overlooked a shared yard with his neighbors. Apparently the neighbors were cat hoarders who took in all of the feral cats in the area, and they didn't even bother to get them spayed and neutered, so there was a constant stream new catties of all shapes, colors, and sizes patrolling and marking the area. Well, unfortunately for my client, one of the favorite places for the little felines to mark was his front door. So one day he is tending the plants on his deck when he sees a smaller cat, not full grown, but not a kitten, approaching his garage to presumably do its business under his deck, where the local cats had set up their own personal litter box. In the moment he decides that he will try to scare the shit out of the little kitty and drop one of his terracotta planters off of his porch as it came closer. Let's just say he didn't miss the cat, and the neighbor's mentally handicapped adult son just so happened to see the cat's demise. Animal cruelty charges ensue. I get him a pre-trial diversion agreement wherein the charges are dropped if he doesn't get into any more trouble for 12 months. We waited the 12 months and had the charges dismissed and expunged from his record. As long as y'all enjoy dark humor, I've got a story from the judge's point of view. The defendant was a gang member with a long rap sheet. My friend's dad was presiding. They took a recess and the judge and both attorneys were chatting on the steps of the courthouse while the defendant was smoking down by the curb. Car drove up and two guys with bandanas covering their face jumped out, shot and killed the defendant and drove off. My friend's dad turned to the two attorneys and said, well, guess that's settled. Who wants to grab lunch? Thanks for watching UpGoat Reddit. Try like and subscribe button if it still works.